Hello everyone, welcome to the next topic that we're going to discuss, which is about low fidelity prototyping. Why did you choose this topic next? It's a natural progression from what we as product managers and business analysts have been doing right after user journey. User journey has been a really good way for us to get feedback on what users we're focusing and what is the exact journey that they're doing. We also saw some examples. So the next level of detail is about how do we do prototyping and how do we kind of get feedback on that. When we talk about prototyping, typically it goes into this concept that we call proof of concept, where we actually make a really small example of how the product or the project needs to look and then get feedback. But there's one step before that, which is what I'm going to talk about today, which is low fidelity prototyping. So low fidelity prototyping is nothing but an ability to kind of quickly get feedback in by making really simple rough representations of the concepts to validate and then kind of loop that through in. So that's low fidelity prototyping. We'll go through a little bit, and by the way, I'm referring to this article from Smashing Magazine. I believe the link in the description. You can go and take a look at it. So that's low fidelity prototyping. How did it help you? So one of the key things about low fidelity prototyping is it is about having a conversation. It is not about trying to sell a concept. It is about trying to put something out there and then let the thoughts come through. It's easier to have something on the board and then ask for some feedback rather than starting from a blank slate. So like it's written in this article, it's more about listening rather than selling. It's not about kind of saying, oh, this concept works well. It's about, hey, what do you think about this concept, and then talk about users' needs and other stakeholders' goals and see how they are aligned. So that's basically low fidelity prototyping. The next topic we want to talk about in low fidelity prototyping is why do we need to do it now? So some of the key things is basically on the trends in the industry, which is about design thinking. How do we kind of design something right from the start? So that's basically what most of the series has been concentrating on. How do we design for an user and how do we kind of bake that in? So that's what low fidelity prototyping kind of helps. A couple of other concepts that have been going around on lean startup, which is about getting a feedback and looping through back in, and user-centered design all talk about the same thing. So what are the couple of the advantages of doing low fidelity prototyping? I think feedback is one of the most important thing that we are looking at. We kind of detect and fix major problems early. For example, if you are looking at a specific user journey and we design it in a way and the feedback is the user is never going to use it because of how the daily life is, then we have to go back and relook at how we design it. So that's detecting major problems early. Build cheap and easily. You do not want to build the entire product and then come back and learn that it's not going to be useful. So you can pivot a lot early. You can bring a variety in your concepts. You can merge some concepts. It helps you diverge and converge a lot faster. So that's the thing. By the way, some of what I'm talking about might be very similar to rapid prototyping. It is very different in terms of the intent. It can be the same. Rapid prototyping is about how quickly you keep doing it. Low fidelity is about how much you invest in kind of creating a prototype and then measuring it. So that's the thing. The third thing is how do you draw feedback from that? Iterate as much as you want, keep doing that and carry and show them easily. What are the types of low fidelity prototypes? One of the more common ones is doing paper prototypes, just draw on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard, whatever you are really good at. So that's one of the more common things. The other ones are actually around 3D. You can actually make things and kind of show it, but the advantages of this is that there's some touch and feel aspect to it, but doesn't really provide much. I'm not a fan of the 3D prototypes and I don't have the skills, so I don't do that. The last one is the Lego. Lego is awesome for you to be able to do it. It's just that sometimes it might feel childish in certain setups like the enterprise setups. Sometimes it could work, so it completely depends on your context. Lego Serious Play is a very, very famous game these days. So please begin to do it if you want to. So how do you start doing this low fidelity prototyping? You first start with what you want to show. So one of the key concepts we have is you actually pick up a set of core features and complementary features. You list it down and see which ones you want to come out in a low fidelity prototype, like a paper prototype or whatever it is. and then you define what method you want to show it. For example, if it could be a paper prototype, it could be Lego, whatever it is. Always look at how you will expose it to the to the stakeholders, the users, and everybody, and obviously based on what resources that you have. Some of the examples are things like this. This is one example they've got. So there is always a simpler way of showing something. All you need is a feedback. You don't really need them to understand how it will work really. At the end of the day, we are not trying to do visual design. It's just a low fidelity prototype. Execute it. Basically, just do that. Sketches, user flows, wireframes, all those things. There are lots of tools to do this. I'm not going to go through everything. My favorite is Balsamiq. I use Balsamiq all the time. So this is an example of one of the prototypes that I did. I'm sorry, it's taking time to load. You can also take a screenshot and then kind of put something on top of that and say, hey, this is how it will work. And the last one is, how do you evaluate what you're showing? For example, can you record things like a mood board or a sentiment meter? Can you record about what they thought about each feature that you wanted to show? All those things. So just feel free to take all feedback as you want. Don't try to kind of limit yourself. One thing that I've tried out in the past is to have a list of probing questions, not leading questions, probing questions, as open-ended as possible, so that all the stakeholders are encouraged to kind of give their reaction to it. So that's basically how we do it. And finally, like I said, you kind of go back and kind of re-looping the whole thing. And then once you have got all this feedback and you've got these prototypes, we build what is called an affinity diagram. I'm not going to go too much into it. It's basically about building the most common suggestions, the feedback, and then we move into building the high fidelity prototype, all the visual designs. That will basically be more or less the final look and feel, or at least the look and feel with which you would want to execute the product or the project. So that's basically what lo-fi prototyping is. I hope you like this. Please leave your comments below on what you want to do next, and if you have any other questions here. Unfortunately, I did not have much to show here. Some of what I did is covered under non-disclosure, so I'm not able to show what I did. I just showed a glimpse of what I did. I used Balsamiq a lot to do prototyping. I also whiteboard a lot. Have fun. Bye, guys.